Well, U.S. dairy exports hit an all-time high during March, thanks to robust growth in all major product categories. And while it's welcome news for milk producers, they say work still does remain to expand markets with global trade partners. Well, Bjerga with the National Milk Producers Federation joins us now with the latest insight on the industry. And Alan, as always, thanks for your time today. First of all, let's start, if we could, with the good news. What contributed to those record numbers in March?
Yeah, what you're seeing is an ever more competitive U.S. dairy export market. As we continue to build trade relations across the globe through the work of the U.S. Dairy Export Council and a lot of the work of the dairy companies and farmers that really lead these efforts, you have a lot of gained market share. You take a look at the last year, you see U.S. dairy global market share go from 29% to 31%. That's like taking a month of California production and just sending it overseas. It's a really great story. It supports dairy prices. It portends a broader, rosier future for the industry. And it's a trend we're seeing continue with some record export numbers coming up just in the month of March. High export share and $688 million of U.S. dairy products being sent overseas.
Now, Alan, as we mentioned earlier, you guys are still working to resolve conflicts with some trade partners. Bring us up to speed on that effort.
Well, the first goal you have as a U.S. dairy industry and the farmers and the cooperatives that all work together to create these high quality, nutritious products is to get open markets and get expanded markets for dairy trade. That's the name of the game. To do that, though, you need integrity. And what we've seen in the case of the USMCA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, we've seen a lot of issues with Canada and how Canada has been allocating what's called tariff rate quotas on dairy products under this agreement. This basically allows larger U.S. market share allowed under the USMCA to get to Canadian consumers. But Canada has been administering these in a way where not necessarily the product is getting there that's supposed to be getting there. So we've been asking the U.S. trade representatives to take a look at this. They started consultations with Canada last December. But we want to make sure this stays top of mind. So a bunch of dairy organizations, including us, 68 total, have sent a letter to U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai saying, we need to take a look here in terms of starting a dispute settlement case. We need to take to look at these USMCA mechanisms and say there's a problem here. We need the market access that was promised. Let's do what it takes to make sure that the integrity of this trade system is maintained and that U.S. dairy products get their fair share of these global markets.
Alan, you guys have offered to collaborate with the Biden administration to try and strengthen the U.S. dairy industry. What would you like to see when it comes to expanding those ag markets moving forward directly from the Biden administration?
Well, we understand that we live in a world where, domestic concerns are crucial and having our domestic industry advance is important. But in the case of dairy, exports and trade are a big part of that. And you can't lose that aggressive pursuit of a trade agenda. Again, that top priority on opening markets, creating these new relationships, giving U.S. dairy farmers a chance to compete with the high quality, cost-effective, nutritious, sustainable products that they can ship worldwide. U.S. dairy can and does nourish the world in a sustainable way that is good for U.S. consumers, U.S. economies, and consumers around the world.
All right. Well, Alan, as always, thank you very much for your insight this morning. Alan Bjerga, he's with the National Milk Producers Federation, connecting with us today out of Washington.